The meeting to order. Roll call.
Britt?
Here.
Watson?
Here.
McCain?
Here.
Wertz?
Here.
Hyen?
Here.
Johnson? There she is. Oh,
Here.
okay. Rust?
Here.
Hanfelder?
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. Now we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Kevin, let's get Kevin up there and see his flag there. Unless everybody has a flag in their own office. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Sue, do we have any public comments?
No, there is no public comment submitted.
Okay. No one's raised their hand to make a comment. All right. So Doctor, I guess you're going to give us a budget health update.
Yes, sir. So I'll just have some talking points here on revenues and expenditures. And I want to thank Nancy and Mary for contributing to this list. So on revenues, we're projecting the same for local and state government revenues this month. Projection of more of a loss in tuition and fees this month than last month. And this projection, so everyone's aware, is based upon the percentage of tuition and fees that are collected through October 2019 for this fiscal year. This percentage is applied with the current year to date to determine what the annual amount might be. So again, this is somewhat speculative, but we try to make the most informed decision we can. Now, of course, enrollment, as we know, is already a challenge, and you know, we all, I think, can agree that the pandemic has only added a variable of complexity to that. Other revenue is showing a slightly higher shortfall than last month, as circumstances dictate less of an on-site presence on campus. As you know, we don't have students on campus for the most part. The dental health clinic, those revenues are suffering, as well as some of the miscellaneous revenues that we often receive, such as parking fines, classroom rentals, Missouri Baptist and the Greenville campus, and Greenville, for example, are a couple of other examples of those miscellaneous revenues that we're seeing a lot less than they typically would be. And then, of course, finally, on the revenue side, some of the indirect costs are showing an uptick this month. Naturally, this will uptick with the start of an ending of grants and the timing of expenditures with grants. So there's some pass through there that is really erratic. And so those numbers are always going to, quite frankly, look a bit different each month. In terms of expenditures, there's not much of a savings projected on salaries when compared to the September month. In October, there were 2 payments to adjuncts as opposed to just 1 in September. So this naturally changes the basis for our projections. Nancy has informed me that she credits much of the savings in this area to the positions that were budgeted but not filled. And I might add a little bit of a sidebar here that last week I shared a spreadsheet that kind of looked at the open positions that we have. And I'll talk a bit about this later in the board meeting, but essentially the idea is that we're not filling positions that are not critical to the mission moving forward. So essentially to the point that Nancy made on having budgeted positions but not filling those positions certainly helps the overall budget. And then the total savings on expenditures did not change by much this month. There's a decrease of around $67,000. And, you know, as this is dependent on timing of purchases. And so this projection obviously will at some level vary on a month-to-month basis. So those are some general observations related to the revenues and expenditures monthly. And I just want to thank again, Nancy, Mary, and the entire executive team for really being, I think, very strong and responsible stewards of our budget and continuing to monitor their own respective budgets and try to move forward as best that we can under the circumstances. So I'll open this up if there are questions or observations, either myself or Nancy or Mary, I'm sure would be able to help. Otherwise, that concludes my report on the budget health. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? If not, we move on to the omnibus agenda, and the following items will be approved in one motion unless any board member wishes to have an item pulled prior to the vote. Does anyone wish to pull any of the items? If not, may we have a motion and a second to approve the omnibus agenda?
Motion.
Okay,
Second.
Dwight first and Brenda second the motion. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Britt,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes,
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust. There he is.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hanfelder,
Yes.
thank you.
okay, informational.
I forgot Mr. Watson. I'm sorry, Mr. Watson.
I thought, okay, yeah, that's right.
I'm easily forgotten.
I'm sorry. You approve?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion approved. Thank you. Informational items, Dr. Tresca.
Yeah, so on the informational items, I don't know if there are any questions on these specifically, but I do want to specifically address T, U, and V. I don't know if anyone else on this evening want to address P, Q, R, and S. But are there any questions from the board related to any of those items specifically? If not, I'll address a couple of items that were brought to me. So on the hiring freeze item, I just wanted to acknowledge that, and I noted this in the budget health update, that I did send a vacant positions update, which is based on 11-18 numbers. Essentially, the college, I believe historically has practiced kind of an awareness of, hey, if a position becomes open, let's not jump to the conclusion of filling that, but let's take a hard look at really what the need is in filling that position. That certainly continues to be the case. And we're only filling positions that are absolutely mission critical to serving the students and the teaching and learning mission of the college. At this point, there are a number of positions open, and there's a faculty counselor position and a faculty nurse assisting position. And both of those positions are examples of positions that will be filled. Also, oftentimes you may see an NGREC position that we're looking at filling, and these are grant positions as well. But at the same time, we're not necessarily always jumping to fill an NGREC position. I want to thank Gary Rolfe and his team for really also stepping back and reassessing where the needs are and how we can better align some of the work that NGREC's doing with some of the expectations of the institution. So when we see hiring freeze, it doesn't necessarily mean we're freezing all hiring. We're taking a step back naturally to look at where the needs are and being sure that we're being thoughtful and making the best investments we can in positions moving forward. So, and the next item is the Manny Jackson Center for Humanities and Lincoln School. On this one, as I've noted to many of you, that I'm not going to get into the weeds on this one, but I do have a call with Manny Jackson tomorrow. And, before we begin to discuss, I think in more depth, really the future of the Manny Jackson Center in alignment with the college's focus and sort of future, I'd really like some time to really think about and have more broader discussions around that center, what the utility of that facility can ultimately be potentially. So I wanted to update the board on that, and also everyone listening, that that's something that's certainly on our radar. One of the things that this really links to, and it's a really important part of our process, is we're in the early part of our strategic planning work, and a survey has gone out to the team. A reminder has gone out today to try to increase the participation in that. I think we had a good number of responses today after a little bit more of a nudge, but we originally had about 75 responses. And essentially my point is that such decisions or discussions around properties or programs or other initiatives, in my opinion, really have to link back very, very specifically and deliberately to where we're moving as an institution, strategically, and I think philosophically. So, what our engagement looks like in communities across our district and our county is really important. And I think Manny Jackson plays into that. And then I also kind of move on to item V, which is the East St. Louis. This is something that is currently under discussion. Brian Durham and myself have a follow-up discussion on Friday to really discuss, quite frankly, what the shape of the East St. Louis Center may look like moving forward. As you may know, the East St. Louis facility is funded through an ICCB grant. There are indirect costs naturally in anything we do to the institution, but that is a fully funded operation by ICCB, and essentially ICCB is evaluating essentially the future of that program. And before I can really be comfortable getting into any weeds there, I'll just say that we're currently taking a hard look at East St. Louis in coordination with ICCB, and I will update the board more robustly on that item in January as well. So, not sure if there's any specific questions on those to me, but I'm happy to entertain those. Otherwise, that concludes my comments on those specific items, Chairman Hyatt.
Any questions or comments from the board? If not, we move on to discussion items.
Okay, so on W, I'm not sure if Chris is on the call, or Laura, you want to handle that one?
Yeah, sure. There is, as I'm sounding like a broken record, there is not much news to report in terms of our 2 CDB projects that are listed on page 229 in your board books. We do have a call with CDB on Thursday on a totally unrelated third project. So Mary's laughing, but so we know that projects are moving, and hopefully we'll get some more answers and an update. That third project that we applied for has to do with the fire alarm system upgrade in the main complex. So we'll know more and report more to the board when we have any sort of confirmation on that project and some direction or movement on these two. Any questions?
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
On item X, which is the update on incorporating performance-based measures and compensation systems. This was an item directed through the Personnel Committee, which is one of our board committees. And at our last meeting, we agreed that we would have a more comprehensive update on this. However, I know that Gabe has had a really good conversation with the HR director at Waubonsie, and I have a plan to talk with actually a former colleague who's a vice president at Waubonsie. And we were trying to plan to talk this week, and hopefully that happens, but we will have some recommendations for the board in January, essentially, kind of outlining what we see as really, the opportunity here, and if it's in fact something that as a leadership team we feel is a priority for us. So we want to do due diligence and respect the request by the board and take a look at this, and then bring some specifics to you in January. So that's all I've got on those. Any questions on that one or anything else at this point?
I have a comment, Dr. Traska. I have a concern, and I guess this is a good spot for discussion items, that our board has too many unnecessary committee meetings, and they're taking a staff away from other duties. We have a great staff, and we are expressed, we need to let them run the college and we need to just let them do their job. I think we're spending too much time in meetings, and when we have these meetings, they have to be posted on the internet. It takes them away from other stuff. Minutes are got to be taken and then to be posted. And I think it hurts morale. And when somebody's constantly looking over your shoulder, I don't think it's a good working environment. I think the board needs to give Dr. Traska time to learn the lay of the land. And before making any major decisions, such as selling property or closing campus, I think we need to do this, a lot of thinking about this, like as you've already said. The Illinois Community College Association handbook states that boards secede when they take the larger perspective and let the day-to-day details are left to the president and the staff. And I agree with that. And also when we started changing a lot of our policy manuals, the Higher Learning Commission states that the governing board delegates day-to-day management of the institution to the institution administration and expects the institution faculty to oversee academic matters. So long and the short of it, I think we need to give Dr. Traska some free rein here. And I think we need to trust our staff and let them run the college. And we don't try to administer the day-to-day operations. I think we're getting down to too tight on some things. And that's my opinion.
And I must say, I have to support that. I want to say and congratulate Dr. Traska on doing a good job. I mean, you just started officially in September, and you've done a remarkable job in getting acclimated to the culture here, developing relationships with the faculty and staff and the leadership community and the community at large. And I think this creates a much needed positive spin on the college. I met with some leaders today, and we spoke about Lewis and Clark, and they talked about you, Dr. Traska, in a very positive way. And they felt that you were an excellent fit in our community, and I certainly agree. So I have said it before that we should not micromanage this institution, that we have qualified staff and a president that we hired that can handle that. So I just add my comments to that.
Any other comments? Well, I disagree that we're micromanaging. I think the voters selected people to represent the voting population, and I think it's important for board members to be informed, and asking questions is how you become informed. And I would hope that we're not in the way, or no one is in the way of Dr. Traska's operation of the college. I just think it's important for each board member to be informed. And if that means asking questions to Dr. Traska or other people, I don't see anything wrong with that. It's a matter of being open and having open dialogue with Dr. Traska. And I was of the impression that Dr. Traska likes open dialogue. So he knows what the board is doing, and we know what he's doing. That's my comment. Any other comments?
I don't think asking questions, David, is a problem. We're spending so much time, and the questions we ask takes a lot of due diligence away from the staff. And I think when the Higher Learning Commission comes in and they ask, do you think we micromanage the college? I think you're not going to like their answers.
Well, it could, you could be right, Dwight. I don't see it that way, but I guess we wait, and when they get here, they'll certainly inform us if, as to what's going on. And it seems to me Dr. Traska is not shy. I would think that he would ask, various questions or make statements, and it seems to me that everyone, I commented to him the other day about trusting him. He was hired. So that shows trust right there, in my opinion. So if there are any, yes.
I'm I was wondering if I could have Dennis Weedman's opinion. I was under the understanding that many boards have these committees and committee meetings, and I like the committee meetings because I think it takes some of the detail out of the board meeting. So some of the questions that Kevin and I asked in the finance committee, we would have previously asked in the board meeting. And so I think it's good that we do that in a committee meeting and not in the board meeting. And also Kevin and I try to be respectful and not and limit the time of these meetings and not let them drone on and on. So I think that's important, and maybe we can limit them further if we need to, but we have a lot of good discussion in the committee meeting. So Dennis, what is your association with other colleges as far as policy or committee meetings?
Well, certainly these type of committees are used across all forms of public governments, not just colleges, but also school districts. And the 4 committees that the college has formed, a policy committee, a human resource or personnel committee, a building and grounds, and what did I say, finance committee. Those are committees that are common to many units of local government, from cities to counties to school districts and colleges. And it is a way to inform board members as far as what the issues are. I know some of the concern before with this board was that questions were being asked of administrators at board meetings, and it was expressed at board meetings that if you have questions, come to us before the board meeting to answer those questions, and don't wait until the board meeting. So committee meetings are certainly an opportunity for board members who are interested in those subjects to receive answers to questions, so it doesn't delay a formal, regular board meeting when they're conducted, and that you're not surprising administrators with questions that maybe they're not prepared for, and maybe you don't have to ask those questions at the public board meeting, that you can answer at a committee meeting. Also, those committee meetings are public. They're available for any board member to attend, so you don't necessarily have to be on that committee to attend the meeting if you have an interest in the subject or the topic for the meeting. But I think what the board needs to probably wrestle with is the frequency that these committees are going to meet, and when they're going to meet, and for what purposes. Do they have to meet every month? Do they only need to meet certain times of the year? Some committees may need to meet more frequently than others. You know, obviously a building and grounds committee is going to meet less frequently than maybe a finance committee meeting. It's going to depend upon, you know, what projects you have going on at the college, any construction projects, working on your ramp proposal. Policy committees may meet less frequently, depending upon if there's a need to revise a policy, or if you're looking at revising certain portions of your policy manual. I know there's some discussion about combining all the different personnel policies into one kind of employee handbook or employee personnel policy book. And that would be the function of a personnel committee, so that the people that are interested in that can focus on those sorts of things, so that the rest of the board is not, complicated by having to spend a lot of time looking at policies, and then that policy committee can bring those revisions to the board for purposes of making a recommendation that the board approve those policies. So they certainly serve certain functions. It's not micromanaging. I mean, you're not the first public body to have committees. It's pretty common across the state of Illinois. So it's how the board chooses to use those committees and what the purposes are and how frequently they're going to meet.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Any other comments?
I'm going to make a couple of comments. I've taken the liberty and rewritten the committee policies, and I talked to Dennis about a week or so ago about it, and he sent some comments, and so I've since edited those, and my plan is to send those out to Chairman Hyen and Dennis in the next day or so. You know, kind of putting my neck out there, in my opinion, those committees should be advisory committees. You know, I feel there is tremendous opportunity for Lewis and Clark Community College to, you know, as I've said, even before I accepted this position, to be a top performing institution across the country. And, you know, I do really appreciate the comments by the board, and I respectfully respect each board member's perspective and interest in being sure that the institution operates in a responsible and effective way. However, I would say that we have a tremendously talented team currently at the college. And I personally empower them and will continue to do so to advance the institution, in the best possible way. Not being in a position where, hey, let's not try this because it's too risky, or, well, we've never done that before, so why would we do it now? I think the board is from a governing perspective here to support and hold us accountable, hold us to the fire. But I think at some level, the committees are advisory committees, I think driven by administration. I would also say, ask as many questions as you want. I remember having this conversation with many of the board members during my transition, saying, listen, I'm all about questions. I'm all about accountability. I've done this before, and quite frankly, had a top performing, actually probably the top 2-3 colleges in the state of Kansas for my entire tenure there, because we had a great opportunity to lead and make the changes from a leadership perspective that we felt were strategically required and were necessary to meet the needs of our students. So while I appreciate everyone's comments, I mean, I'm always willing to adapt and do what I need to do to be sure that we're doing things in the right way. And I have taken some liberties, to take a look at those committees, and Chairman Hyen and I have had this conversation as well. And I think we're in agreement that, there may be some opportunities there to kind of reevaluate the scope and the sort of focus of those committees. Not taking away necessarily the ability of a board member to ask questions, but really giving the leadership team the leverage to do the work that we've been hired to do. I mean, you're investing, frankly, a tremendous amount of resources in each of us because you trust in our talents and our abilities. So, I appreciate that. And I know that each of us on this call in their own way respect that. So again, those are my comments. I obviously continue to look forward to advancing our institution. I think anything is possible for us. I'm willing and ready to kind of continue to move that forward in a positive way. So I do appreciate the board's comments and perspective, and just appreciate the confidence in us as a team, and also your openness to, what I see is being able to evaluate some of the policies and practices that we have in place to better empower us as a team to move the institution forward as we see fit. So for what that's worth, I just appreciate the opportunity to make some comments there, and thank you all again for the support. So thank you.
Any other comments? If not, we move on to the action items. Why we need a motion to approve the grant or sponsored contract opportunities, pages 230 through 234. Do we have a motion to approve that?
Motion.
Second.
And Brenda seconds it. Okay, any discussion? If not, roll call.
Britt,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes,
Johnson,
Yes,
Rust. See. Mr. Rust? There he is. Okay. Hanfelder,
Yes.
All right. And Watson.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Item Z, reimbursable rate for travel by auto. Page 235. Is there a motion to approve that?
Motion to approve.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay, Chuck and Bob. Okay, any discussion?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm definitely in favor of this, but does it need to be referred back to the policy committee and to the attorney for redrafting the policy? Shouldn't that be the motion?
Dennis, can you answer that?
Dennis is
I'm-
watching a football game.
Yeah, I'm unsure. I was trying to look at the agenda here and the actual action item. I'm unsure right at the moment what's changed.
What's changed, Dennis, is that we want the mileage reimbursement policy for the college to be congruent with the IRS reimbursable rate.
Right.
Dennis, the way
I'm trying to scroll to the policy now, but
the policy was written is it says that employees can be reimbursed at the board approved rate at the time of travel.
right.
So
And the
under
board had
that-
actually set a lesser amount than the IRS reimbursable rate.
right. So
And
basically,
the policy and the new, I guess, policy would be to reimburse them at the IRS reimbursable rate.
well, and the way I see it is we're still reimbursing it as the policy reads, which is the board approved rate. We're just changing what that board approved rate is.
Correct. The board approved rate is whatever the reimbursable, it's actually not a reimbursable rate, it's the IRS deductible rate. Because
Right.
unless you're reimbursed for mileage in your employment, and if it's a business expense, you can claim it as a tax deduction.
Right. Well,
And
we
you can
are
claim-
reimbursing
Right.
employees. Right.
So you reimburse up to a certain amount, and then the excess employees could actually claim as a deduction on their taxes if they wanted to go that far. But you reimburse at the board approved rate, and the board approved rate is either a certain amount set by the board, which is currently the case, or you're looking at amending that, changing it to being the IRS deductible rate. So if you reimburse at the board approved rate and the board approved rate is the IRS deductible rate, then I'm not sure what the question is.
So the action here would just be that the board is approving whatever rate they want to approve. And the policy would go along with because it says whatever the board approved, right?
Correct.
The policy itself isn't changing.
The policy's changing because the policy has a specific cents per mile quoted. So the policy has to be changed. I mean, just a little technicality. I mean, if it does need to be it needs to be redrafted, but maybe the only change is the cents per mile.
The policy reads that it's at the board approved rate at the time of travel. There is a note under that statement that says at that current time, it was, I don't know if it was 45 cents, but that's just a footnote. That's not directing reimbursement at that rate always.
See, and I had the action item, but this is what we had to substitute a new page 235. This is the one, correct? That we had to substitute.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. And the new page 235, that was the policy?
No, Dennis, that's just the action item requesting the change in the reimbursement
Okay.
rate. I didn't bring the
But
policy.
that's what I'm not seeing. is the
Policy.
I'm
actual
looking at the
Isn't
policy,
changing.
and the policy specifically says 45 cents per mile.
What's the statement above that, Kevin?
It's all in the same box. It just says Board of Trustees approved rate at the time of travel. And it talks about 40 cents a mile. And then it says 45 cents a mile effective July 1, 2017. It's just a little technicality. It just needs to be redrafted. And maybe the redrafting is just a wording change in there.
Yeah, we can add that back in there, Kevin, as a footnote, just like that 45 cents a mile is. I don't know that that would need a separate board approval. I think we're just asking the board to set the rate without having to do a policy revision. But if that's the desire of the board, I mean, we can bring that policy back forward in January. But really the only thing that would change is just the footnote of what our current policy is. But you know, of course, if the IRS, it's a variable rate. So, I mean, that's not going to be anything consistent.
Yeah, I mean, I see what Kevin's saying. I'm looking at policy 510 and it specifically references 45 cents a mile.
Okay, I'm wondering, are we looking at personnel policy versus a board policy?
Yeah, I'm looking
at board policy.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I think Kevin's correct that we're going to have to amend board policy 510 if you're wanting to go with the IRS deductible rate.
So are you wanting that changed then every year? Every calendar year? Because the one that I
No,
have
you wouldn't
says
put the specific
it's-
rate in there. You would just refer to, you would reimburse at the IRS deductible rate, whatever it's set at for that year.
Right.
You wouldn't put a specific amount in the policy.
No, and it wasn't intended to be a specific amount in this policy either. It was to be the Board of Trustees approved rate at the time of travel. The two amounts that are listed there were just for information as to what that meant at the time. But if it's causing confusion, then very clearly it should be rewritten.
And right.
I thought we were just changing the rate. This was I believe, Board Member Rush brought this up last month just to say, hey, we should reflect the rate to what, you know, I'm getting as president. And wouldn't that just be a language change that we should be able to handle? I mean, in my opinion, I mean, I think it's my opinion, but.
If I would have realized it would be this complicated, I probably wouldn't have brought it forward.
Well, most employers do reimburse at the deductible rate. And if that's what the board wants to do, it's a simple fix to the policy. We just amend policy 510 to say that the board reimburses at the current IRS deductible rate. You don't put the amount in there.
Right. So then you don't have to address it every year. I mean, that's what I've experienced. Just, yeah. Could a motion be made to reflect that in the policy and adopt it effective January 1 or whatever?
Dennis, you can answer that. I was of the impression it was going to be the IRS rate, but it doesn't say that. So do we need to table this until next month to approve the IRS rate?
It
I
does.
want to go back to the action item and what's the motion on the table right now?
To approve the reimbursable rate for travel by auto, page 235. and
Yes,
235.
the actual recommendation is the president recommends the board adopt a reimbursable mileage rate equal to the applicable IRS deductible rate in effect at the time of travel, effective January 1st, 2021.
Okay, well, that's what we want then, isn't it?
Right, but what
That's my
Kevin's
point.
saying, I think Kevin is correct, that you have to have really a motion to amend board policy 510. And that's not what the action item is, and that's not what the motion is.
Well, I think what Dr. Traska said can be the first part of the motion, and the
Right.
second half of the motion would be that policy 510 be revised in accordance Which is-
Yeah, I mean, I think the action item is sufficient to alert the public that the board is taking some action to change how the colleges reimburses mileage. I don't think there's considerable confusion to the public that if we have to amend a board policy, that we're somehow taking action that's not on the agenda. If you want to word the motion that way, I would be fine with it.
Do you want to just approve this motion as written and then adjust it at the January meeting?
Sure.
Yeah, and just to clarify, no one's traveling right now, not
Right.
other than Dr. Tresca. There's not a lot of travel going on. So Mary, I don't know how many you're processing, but I imagine it won't have much of an impact between now and the January board meeting.
It's
I don't
minimal.
think I have anything.
We can hold any travel for that gap.
I call for the vote then, so we can move on.
Britt,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes,
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust.
Yes,
okay. Now I need a motion to approve AA, approve memorandum of agreement between college and Lewis and Clark Faculty Association regarding full-time counselor position, page 236, 238. Do we have a motion to approve that?
Motion.
So moved.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded by Brenda. Any discussion? Call
just
for the
a,
vote. What, go
just a
ahead.
question. I'm in favor of going forward, but my only question would be, could you maybe kind of explain the rationale of why this position is a faculty position in the bargaining unit rather than just an administrative position?
Yeah, so the,
Question, Kevin, and the answer to that is because that's the way we've always done it.
well, and it means
Honestly,
bargain-
it is very common across higher ed to see this position. It's a non-teaching position to our knowledge. It's never been a teaching faculty position. You know, we would like to see this position come out of the bargaining unit. But I think in the interest of time, without having to renegotiate, the faculty union was not interested in a side letter regarding this. So this is what we see as the way forward until we're at the bargaining table again. Gabe, you did all the work on this, so I'll defer to you, but.
Okay,
Yeah, I was just
so I have a
gonna say
question
that-
for Dennis. I have a question for Dennis, and would there be any danger to something like this being the nose in the camel's tent, so to speak, to allow the faculty association to try to absorb other administrative positions into their association?
Well, this question is kind of, before I can answer that, I have a question for Lori or Gabe. Is this full-time faculty, this full-time counselor position is currently in the bargain unit?
Right, it is outlined in the CBA, this position by title. So the only way to remove it would be to bargain it. And the only way to add positions, Kevin, to your question, would be for them to bargain it in. We would have an agreement at the bargaining table to add or delete positions.
And there's actually a legal process to remove a position from the bargaining unit. It's called a unit clarification petition that we would have to file with the Illinois Educational Labor Relations Board to seek to have a position removed from the bargaining unit. And there's limited legal reasons that you can seek to have a position removed from the bargaining unit pertaining to the position now being excluded by law, as opposed to previously when it was in, it was not excluded by law. So there's actually a legal process to go through to remove a position. We could even bargain with the union to agreement that we would remove a position from the bargaining unit, but the State Labor Relations Board, the Educational Labor Relations Board, would have to agree to that before that position could be legally removed from the bargaining unit.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. And just to be, to be clear, this was an initiative of administration. So I mean, the faculty, we came to the faculty and asked to work on, the fact that knowing this position exists in the faculty bargaining unit, we wanted to find, the best possible solution and worked well with them to figure out how we could get more coverage for, the growing demand in mental health. And I'm sure Dr. Lane could supplement me there with more detail. But having one counselor on board 9 months out of the year certainly leaves us with a lot of gaps. Even having this 11-month position now, if we were to approve this, would leave gaps in coverage for when students need it most. So we worked with the faculty executive committee of LCFA for a couple of months on just crafting what they believed would be in the best interest of the position and would also suit the needs of the college. So they were certainly at the table with us, working well together on trying to find the best possible solution here. So.
And I had not talked with Gabe or Lori before I reviewed the MOU, and I thought it was a really creative way to provide more counseling coverage for the campus with what was traditionally a 9-month position. And now by federal law, you're required to have so many counselors per capita of students available on campus. So I thought it was a real creative way to provide more counseling opportunities on campus by restructuring this position.
Thanks, everybody.
Go ahead. Any more discussion? If not, call for the vote.
Britt,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Now we go to AB, approve employment agreement extension for the interim chief academic officer, page 239 through 242. Need a motion to approve and a second. Have a motion?
So move.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Okay, motion been made and second. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Britt,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Okay, motion
Mhm.
Motion approved. And we need a motion to approve the elimination of Associate Vice President Strategic Initiative position and authorize reassignment to fill interim Vice President of Enrollment Services role. Page 243. A motion to approve.
Motion.
Yes, second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? No discussion. Call for the vote.
Britt,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
McCain.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. AD, Modified Board Policy 209.5, Grants, Contracts, and Agreements Approval Authority, page 244 through 246. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion been made. Okay, any discussion? No discussion? We'll call for the vote.
Yeah, well, maybe I guess I could say it afterwards, but and this is really a question for Dennis again, I guess, does this policy need to be also redrafted by you and the committee, or is it simple enough that we can just pass the motion?
I believe I've already drafted an amendment to this. So I think what the board is looking at is the.
Yeah, you've got it here, Dennis.
Right. That's the, I want to make sure we're looking at the amendment that I did.
Yes, it is. It's on page 246 with the highlights for the changes.
I'm
I
still back.
realize that now.
I'm still back on 235, so let me flip forward here. Yes, so I've actually, this would be the actual policy changes that would occur if the board adopts this policy. I've already looked at it and made the changes that we had discussed at the policy committee. One thing I want to say is that this has three concepts kind of going on all at once. You have bidding, purchasing, and contracting, and they kind of interrelate and they kind of do not. The Community College Act requires two things, and that's all that's required by the Community College Act, is that with certain exceptions, all purchases greater than $25,000 have to be bid. And then that all contracts have to be awarded by the Board of Trustees. Not all purchases require contracts, and not everything purchased has to be bid. So there's, three things going on here: purchasing, bidding, and contracting. And what administration, and I'll let Dr. Traska speak for his administrative team, but they're wanting certain and the board's already granted certain limitations that would allow administration to purchase and enter into contracts. And what the changes are doing is essentially increasing those limits. The board's already made a decision to delegate certain responsibilities to administration in contracting and purchasing. The question is to increase those limitations. So it seems to be, when we've talked about this in the past, there's some confusion over bidding and contracting and purchasing, and it's all incorporated in this one policy.
Are you going on record, Dennis? Could you clarify for us whether you consider a purchase order to be a contract? Because we do when we make an agreement to purchase.
I would have to see the purchase order. And I don't know if you talked to Gene about this. He would be the person that you really should talk to about commercial transactions. A purchase order can be a contract.
That's why we treat purchases the same as contracts for that reason. Just to explain.
Right. Okay.
And so this motion, according to the president's recommendation, raises it from 5,000 to 15,000, and then and increasing the delegating authority from 1,500 to 3,000, and that's what we're voting on.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, roll call.
Britt,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, we go to AE, Resolution 21-3, 2020 tax levy, page 247, 248. Motion to approve that resolution. Have a motion?
So move.
Brenda, okay, made the motion. We need a second.
Second.
Okay, Russ, second. Any discussion? Call for the vote. Sue? You're,
I'm so sorry. Britt,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yep.
Hyen,
yes,
Johnson.
Yes.
motion carried. We have AF Resolution 21-4 Abatement Series 2014, page 249. We have a motion to approve that.
So
Motion.
move.
Brenda, who have a second?
Dwight,
Okay, Dwight second. Any discussion? If not, Sue, roll call.
Britt,
Yes.
Sue, you're up, you're
I'm
turned off.
sorry, McCain,
Yes.
Wertz,
yes,
Hyen,
Yes,
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes,
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
motion carried. AG, Resolution 21-5, Abatement Services 2015B, page 250. Motion to approve.
motion,
Motion.
Hey, Dwight made the motion. Brenda, you're second. You second the
Okay,
motion? Okay.
sure.
Any discussion? Roll call, Sue?
Britt,
Yes.
Wertz,
yes,
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes,
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
yes,
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
okay. That concludes all the business on the agenda. So I declare adjournment of our December meeting. Thank you all for attending and participating. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you,
Merry
sir.
Christmas.
Happy holidays.